Growing up as a kid, I've always kind of had a thing for superheroes. Who am I kidding? I still kind of have a thing for superheroes. I love them all. Marvel, DC, movies, cartoons, comic books, anime, video games, it doesn't matter. I'm not prejudiced. I like all of them. And if you browse through our family photo albums, you'll see my love for them become apparent pretty quickly. And I've also tried to instill this love for superheroes into my kids throughout the years, too. So we've got lots of pictures. We had the Flash, Super Mario. We've had multiple Spider-Men over the years. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. I'm not sure who wore a Daphne better, though. Yeah, I think it was me. The Incredible Hulk. Even Tinkerbell. I guess she's a superhero too. Yeah. I even convinced the church one year to do a superhero-themed vacation Bible school. I think because of my attraction to superheroes and my love for the Bible, there's always been one story in the Bible that kind of was my favorite, that's really stood out to me. And it was a story of an actual, certifiable, real superhero with real superpowers. And that was the story of Samson. Yeah, the story of Samson found in the Bible has always been one of my favorites growing up as a kid. And it's got everything that you want in a great superhero movie. How can you not love it? It's got a strong character, miraculous feats of strength, epic battles, betrayal, and ultimately victory for the hero. Yeah, how can you not love the story of Samson? And I do love it. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be working our way through this incredible favorite story of mine to see what kind of truths we can learn from it. And you can read about it, or start reading about it, in the book of Judges, beginning at chapter 13. Now, we are in the book of Judges because Samson was actually one of the last major judges, with a few minor judges following behind him. And what is a judge? Well, a judge was a non-elected, non-hereditary military leader who led the Israelites before the period in time when they had a king. And you'll hear about this lack of a king mentioned quite a few times throughout the book of Judges, actually, like in Judges 17:6. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. Yeah, no king.
Great idea! Who needs a king? No king, no king, la 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 la.
Idiots!
Well, that is about right, too. Without a king, there are a lot of idiots. You know, actually, with a king, there are a lot of idiots, too. And we're not even going to begin to talk about how many idiots there are with a president. Anyway, judges in the Old Testament unofficially led the people until the time when Israel demands that God gives them a king like everybody else has. Okay, so Samson is going to be raised to be a judge, one of the last final major judges, because Israel, well, they've done it once again. Listen to Judges chapter 3, verse 1. This is the beginning of Samson's story. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and so the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. Yep, once again they have done it. And who is going to be raised up this time to fight against the Philistines? To fight and lead the Israelites? Well, Samson, of course. And Samson, he actually comes from a pretty unlikely place. He comes from a husband and wife who have been married for some time, but have been unable to have children. The Bible tells us that Samson's mother was barren. And to be barren back in those days, And believe it or not, that actually made people look down upon you. Yeah. You see, back in that day, children were considered to be a blessing. So if you had a lot of kids, you were really blessed by God. But if you had no kids, then you must have done something wrong to really make God angry. You must have done something awful. So if you lived your life without any children, unable to have children, you were looked down upon by the rest of the Israelites in your society. Because God is punishing you. But in all reality, in this particular story, and in many, many other stories, it's actually the complete opposite. God has something special planned for them. They just had to be patient enough to wait for it. And we know that there was a great plan put in place because an angel shows up and he greets Samson's mother and says to her, "You are barren and childless, but you are going to conceive and have a son." And that's some good news. And this is actually completely the opposite of what she would have been hearing almost every day of her life. On a normal day, she would have heard, "You are barren and childless, and it's all your fault." Or "You are barren and childless, and you deserve it because of what you have done." See, they were super nice people back then, weren't they? Yes. Actually, not much has changed between back then and now. I mean, there's been a couple of thousand years in between, but our society is still all about blame, aren't we? I mean, no matter what the situation is, we've got to blame somebody. When something goes wrong, the very first thing that we do is try to figure out whose fault it is. I mean, seriously, that's what we do. Let's play a little game. Let's play a little game called Whose Fault It Is, because we're used to doing this on a normal basis. All you got to do is watch a clip and tell me whose fault it is. Okay, so whose fault is this? Whose fault? Well, whoever got the basketball stock and forced this poor guy to throw his shoe at it that went flying hundreds of yards away. Is it the guy's fault who threw the shoe and missed? No, it's the guy's fault that got the basketball stuck. Yes. Whose fault is this one?
I want you to pick up this container right over here and put it over there. Got it? One less and he's ready to go. Be careful of the customer's truck over here, okay? A little to your right. To your right. No, Tyler, to your right. Brakes. Uh-oh.
Whose fault? Well, Mom is going to say that it's Dad's fault for letting her little boy drive a fork truck when he wasn't ready. So that's who's getting blamed this time. And that's why this happens. Whose fault is this? Yeah, I mean, seriously. If men had to take the blame for the last one and the kid didn't get blamed, then the least we can do is pay for it just a little bit. Am I right, guys? Yeah. Okay, so whose fault is this? Whose fault is it? This is actually a trick question because it's neither one of their faults. It's whoever the passenger was that was in the vehicle that was supposed to be helping them look, that didn't tell them there was a car backing up into them while they were backing up. Yeah, of course it's somebody else's fault. Why? Because as a society, that's who we are. We are a society who blames everybody else for our own problems. I can tell you for a fact that none of my children have ever been the first one to do anything wrong. Nope. Nobody has ever done anything unprovoked. Everything that they do that's wrong can always be traced back to someone else who either deserved what they had coming to them, or they made them do it, or they did it to them first. No one has ever been the first one to do it. Everybody's always just responding to somebody else. Yeah, that's who we are, though, isn't it? It's always somebody's fault, isn't it? We're in a recession. Whose fault is it? Well, it's Biden's fault we're in a recession. And before that, if anything went wrong, it was Trump's fault. Before that, Obama's and Bush's and Clinton's and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've always blamed whoever happens to be the easiest target at that moment in time. A woman that gets raped, she shouldn't have dressed like that, right? A kid fails a test, and the teacher should have taught that material better. A team loses a game, and it was the coach's fault for not having a good strategy. A crime takes place, and depending on who you ask, it could be the aggressor, the victim, the police, or society in general that caused them to do this. We've had a rash of shootings lately, and each time, mere moments later, different sides start pointing their fingers to make sure that the right people get blamed for it. I saw a quote this week that said, "If your relationship fails, don't blame her. It takes two people to mess up a relationship. Blame her and her mother." That right there, guys, is the story of our lives. Nobody's sorry anymore for anything they do and or say because it's never anybody's fault. It's always someone else forcing them to be like this. Yeah, not much has changed in a couple thousand years. So back to our story. The angel brings some refreshing news and then goes on to tell her that not only is she going to be blessed with a child, but she's got some rules to follow for this child because it's going to be special. So she has a job to do. Well, what kind of rules? What kind of job? Look at verse 4. He says, "Now see to it that you drink no wine or fermented drink, and that you do not eat anything unclean, because you will conceive and give birth to a son. No razor may be used on his head, because the boy is to be a Nazarite, set apart to God from birth." Well, that's pretty interesting. The angel starts off by giving her the good news and then quickly follows it up with her responsibility following this or regarding this blessing. She's supposed to drink no alcohol during the pregnancy and not let him drink any when he's growing up. And she's not supposed to eat anything that's considered to be unclean. On top of this, the boy is to be a Nazarite from birth. A Nazarite from birth. Now that is really kind of a strange thing to be said. You see, to be a Nazarite, that meant that you took a vow. So you would take a Nazarite vow. And it was a vow that was voluntarily taken by the Israelites. It wasn't something that was forced on you. And it was voluntarily taken during a period of time to bring yourself closer to God. So if you said, "I really want to be closer to God," then you would take a Nazarite vow, and then for the next, however long you feel, 2 weeks, 30 days, a couple hours, there were things that you could not do during this vow. You couldn't drink any fermented drinks. You couldn't go near any corpses, not even if your own family members passed away, because you were in the midst of a vow that you needed to live out for God. And finally, you could not cut your hair during this vow. That was something that was not allowed. And like I said, it was a voluntary vow that was taken anywhere from, it was usually 30 days and up is usually what the vow was. And it would just be for a limited time for the Israelites while they were working on fixing their relationship or bettering their relationship with God. So the angel tells this would-be mother that her son is to have this vow from birth for the rest of his life. And that's kind of strange. Because, first of all, it's way longer than anyone else has ever taken it. I mean, we're talking an entire life. And not just 30 days, an entire life with no booze, no funerals, never cutting his hair. We're going to have ourselves a little baby Fabio here, aren't we? That kid is so cute. Okay, so why exactly, again, are we to have a little baby Fabio? Well, the angel goes on to say, he will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines. Okay, so that sounds good. That sounds cool. So the wife goes home and she tells him everything that happened. And what does she tell him? Well, she kind of basically tells him, "Honey, some guy came up to me today. I think it was a man of God. I'm not sure where he comes from. I didn't catch his name. But he told me that we're going to have a baby and we can never cut his hair or let him drink any beer." And you kind of feel bad for her husband at this point, because as a guy, I can relate to this experience. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you just know that their kind of conversation went something like this. What was this guy's name again? I don't know. Well, where did this guy come from? I don't know. Where did he go to so I can talk to him? I don't know. Well, how did he know all of this stuff? I don't know. Yeah. So let me see if I can get this right. Some random guy came up to you who you don't know and whose name you didn't ask. And this random guy out of the blue told you that after all these years not being able to have a kid, we're finally going to have a kid. And then he gave you a bunch of random rules on how to raise him. Yeah, pretty much. Let me ask you guys a question out there. Am I the only one that has these conversations in my life from the woman that he's married to? I mean, one time we took our car to get inspected, and then Terry picked it up. And when she got home, she told me that I might want to talk to him because the guy told her that it passed inspection, but something or other on it may or may not break before the next inspection. And it had something to do with the tires or the steering or the brakes or something. Yeah, we've all been there. Yes, we have. So the husband prays to God. He says this. He says, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I beg you to let the man of God you sent to us come again to teach us how to bring up the boy who is to be born." I mean, the dad just kind of wants to hear it to make sure that he gets it right. And God sends the angel back. They talk for a while. And in thanks to this message, the husband and wife offer a burnt sacrifice to God. And then the angel flies into the fire and up to heaven in this burnt offering to show that this message had 100% absolutely definitely come from God. It's pretty cool. And there are so many things that we can learn from just the very beginning of the story, even before Samson is born. And if there's something today that you could take with you from the start of this story, I think the thing would be the truth that someone doesn't always have to be to blame. There always doesn't have to be one person to blame. Things happen, and it doesn't matter why they happened. What matters the most is what you do now that they have happened. You see, folks, the world is constantly playing the blame game, but you can do so much more help in this world if you spend less time blaming and more time fixing or helping. Verse 13 in our scripture today closes like this. Chapter 13, verse 24. The woman gave birth to a boy, named him Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him. Yes, his superpowers are starting to grow, and next week we're going to get our first look at some of these amazing things that he's able to do through the power of the Holy Spirit, and take a look at this actual honest to God superhero. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you soon. God bless.